Hey guys, it's Paula from the SheHH Podcast team and welcome to SheHH, where we interview women in Christian music all around the world. It's series 3 of the podcast and today we're speaking to New Zealand, Zimbabwean artist CASS. This is actually her second time on the podcast and we discuss her new album, Diaspora. She tells us a bit about the themes in the album, she tells us about her musical journey, and it's such a great conversation. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at SheHH Podcast and share this episode with a friend. Hey, Cass.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I am good. I'm great. How are you?
I am good, thank you very much. I know it's been about 2 and a bit years, maybe 3 since we last spoke on an episode of the podcast, the SheHH Podcast. I mean, if anyone watching or listening hasn't listened to that first conversation, they probably should, because I feel like this is going to be a continuation of that. But how have you been? What have you been up to in the last 2.5 years?
I've been good. Working on music, girl, doing my thing. Obviously, before the pandemic, I was touring a lot. And then obviously pandemic happened and got stuck at home. But just working on music, working on my new album that is dropping in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
So that's been really fun. And yeah, that's been a big journey. It's been a huge journey.
Amazing. I mean, we're going to jump straight into the music because this is a 12-track EP. So I have a lot to discuss. And first of all, can we just thank God and Cass and her team for allowing me to listen to the album before the launch, so that these are really specific questions to all the songs. And if it was up to me, I would break down each song, but timing. So not every song's going to be covered, but just know that this album, Diaspora, I'm here for it. I am, as a Diasporan, I am here for it. I actually love it. It's stunning. It's beautifully put together. It's very handcrafted. It's very intentional. I feel God all over it. And I'm just so excited for some new CASS music. No shade, but it's been a while.
No shade. It's facts. It's been a minute. It's been 2 years.
No shade, but thank you.
No, not shade. Throw the shade. It's been a while. I need it.
No, it's fine. I feel like it was needed. I think I was saying to the team, when you listen to it, you know that it was years coming. It was worth the years to wait. But before we go into that, I just want to ask, why the name Diaspora? Why the blue rollout all over socials? The blue rose and the all the pieces together that we were trying to get names and stuff from on social media. What was the whole plan with that? Let's start there.
Yeah. I'm so glad you started with that, because everything you said before about it's so intentional. Everything has been so intentional. So I'm glad you started with that because it kind of kicks it off. So long story short, 2019. So Not For Sale comes out 2018, right? Touring 2019. And then I'm like, okay, I probably should start. Maybe June, July. I'm probably should start working on the next album. Just kind of put feelers out there. And then as I'm doing that, in July or August 2019, craziest month of my life, literally almost died 4 times. My bank account got hacked. My bag, it's literally 4 weeks of the devil was I'm trying to take you out. It was crazy. And then to find out end of the month, someone got healed of the set, one of my sets. So I was okay, that's probably why. But I say all that to say, there was a lot of really crazy things happening, a lot of positive things, a lot of great opportunities, a lot of negative things, crazy month in July. In August, my parents pretty much decided to get a divorce, which is a long time coming. And it was just a crazy year, a lot of positive, a lot of negative. And I realized that I needed to start to go counseling because I feel I would be touring and I'll be on stage in front of thousands of people, having the time of my life, just God, amazing. Go to my hotel room and I'm crying. It was just, I was feeling things quite in an extreme way, extremely positive, extremely high, extremely lows. And in some ways, I think I probably was depressed as well. So it was a lot happening. So I started going to counseling 2019. And then as I start doing that, God starts healing me. I go to a trip in Australia, I think in September. And so when I started going counseling, I just stopped working on music because I was like, man, I just need to take a step back and focus on healing. Like I just had the capacity to tour and heal. And then around September, October, I come back from a trip and I just felt God was like, I'm going to give you the name of a new album. I was like, awesome, that's amazing. And then he was like, the name is, Diaspora or Diaspora, however you want to say it. So I'm like, okay, cool. Because I knew the normal meaning, right? Being like you and I, being from our homeland, being in Africa, but then living in a different, the dispersion of a different country. So I'm like, okay, that's an interesting name. I'm like, awesome, random, but cool. Like I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Then he's like, search up the origin meaning of it, like the etymology. I'm like, cool. So I search it up and girl, the Greek meaning. So it's 3 words. It's a Greek word, excuse me. And it's 3 words put together. And it means the 3 words are to sow, to scatter, and to spread about. And God just starts talking to me. And he's like, the reason why I made you start going counseling is I want you to heal because I want you to share your testimony on this album. And then your testimony is going to be like a seed of faith. And I'm going to use it to sow, to scatter, and to spread, hence the name. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And so like from that moment to pretty much like mid last year, it was a matter of just, I was going to counseling, I was healing, especially in the pandemic, I had more time. And I just, as I'm healing, I'm writing songs. And some songs took 2 years, 3 years to write. But it was just, literally, it was like healing, testimony, write it down. Now, the blue and all of that. So that color is essentially, when I was in 2016, I did ministry school at my school. I think I already told you that at my church. Did a year of ministry school. And we did this like exercise. And this guy called Mike Burrows, I believe, him and his wife are gifted in the prophetic. And they're very, like, they gave me prophecies that are so accurate, Paula, like, that have come true. Not like, oh, God's going to bless you. Like, she literally was like, you're going to be an artist. Like, it was very specific. And this one time, we did this exercise where he pretty much was like, hey, pick a color and I'll prophesy based off that color. So I remember saying something like, I think I was, I've got dark humor, and I think I'm just like, God's working on me. I'm a natural cynic. And I think I said something like, people were like, oh, purple. Some were like green. And then I was like, oh, turquoise. I was like, what's he going to do with turquoise? And then he just kind of gave me this prophecy and was like, blue represents depth. And like depth, like when most treasures are found in the ocean, right? So you thought like blue ocean, depth, and God's going to begin to give you like treasures of his word or revelation of your story in the next couple of years. And it was just a real like specific prophecy. And seriously, the last 2 years since he gave me that, I've seen that come to pass in terms of like my own devotional life and then the counseling. So it's all just like super interconnected. So the blue really is like in the cover art I posted today, I'm holding a blue rose, and the blue represents my story. Like the rose essentially is my testimony. And it's just like the idea of like the cover art is me. And if people haven't seen it, it's me in like a cinema, like 6 different versions of me in the cinema.
I just saw it before I went to bed. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. And it's basically like the idea of it is like diaspora is my testimony, sow, scatter. God's going to use a seed of faith in my testimony, sow, seed, and scatter it. But the actual cover art in the blue rose is like my testimony, and you have 6 different versions of me watching, like in the cinema, watching a movie. As in, I'm inviting people to come into my world, come into my story. I'm inviting people to come and I guess just watch this movie of my life, of my story. So it's all very, very intentional. It wasn't just like a cute little like, oh, let me pick this color. It's all very everything means something.
No, we could tell. I think from the moment that you started to post like different things like reels and then you had like the letters missing and it was like, but this person features, and we were just like, something's coming. I mean, I think it was music related, but I think we were just like, what does this mean? What are these words? And I was having so much. I don't know if you remember, I was having so much fun in your comment section. Like this, like
a lot of people were messaging me. A lot of people messaging me and just like trying to figure out what it is. And it was a really cool, like, I don't know if it was going to come across well, but I feel like it did because a lot of people had a lot of fun with it.
Yes, I think engagement-wise, like obviously it was a whole spiritual thing, but engagement-wise, it was great because I felt like people were just like messaging, like, what does this mean? Having conversations, and like I love to see it. And everything makes sense when you explain it like that. For me, it feels like this album reminds me of Genesis. So we had Genesis in 2017, we had, which was obviously the beginning, and we had Not For Sale in 2018. And in Genesis, you had like everything in capital letters. It was like classic CASS, where everything's capital letters. All the song names have like really bold titles, etc. And this is what I feel like was reflected in this
That's
album.
cool.
You've gone back to the capital letters, and everything's like a bit more like, you listen to a song and it's not just the name of the song is Skin. Okay, the chorus is going to be skin, 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 skin. It's not like kind of like listen to the words, you get what this is coming from, that kind of thing. And I love that. And I don't know if you noticed that it kind of was like a return to that kind of, obviously it sounds quite different, but for me it felt like, okay, we've gone to I was going to say vintage CASS, but like you're still really young, so it's not vintage. Like, you know.
Thanks for that. I'm young. Love that.
You're like, I'm young. Do you know what I remember? In our first interview, we were both talking about like you were turning 25, I was turning 23. No. Yes.
24? 23,
like, yeah. We were both like, oh my gosh, like we're like actually in our 20s. Like we're and now we're like late 20s. And I'm like,
late 20s. Yeah. I was like, when you said young, I was like, yes, please say that. Keep saying that. I love that.
There are kids that were like born in 2000. So let's just remember that. Like, that's terrifying. Sorry, that was a complete tangent. But yeah, I was just saying that it feels like it reminds me of like the Genesis kind of era of like how you would do music. And to start with the first song that I want to discuss, actually, let's start from the beginning. So you start with, I believe, Egypt. I should get the track list up, but you start with Egypt and you have like a spoken word piece, kind of like poem. And I remember that starting, and I was like, oh, CASS is really going to go in this thing. Okay. Yeah. First listen, I was just like, my eyes were open. Tell us what the journey of this album is supposed to be. Like someone listening from track 1 to track 12, what is the journey they're supposed to go on?
Yeah. Well, basically, Egypt, the journey itself is I'm inviting people in, and I think Egypt really kind of starts that journey in terms of like, welcome to my story. Obviously, as a Christian, you can put the dots together, you know, in terms of like Egypt, coming out of Egypt, Israelites vibes. But also I feel simultaneously, this album is multifaceted, like just like Genesis. The first one to say that, by the way. 4 people have heard the album, like, and they all have different thoughts. So it's really cool to hear different interpretations. But I think the journey of the album is really, I'm inviting people in, and Egypt kind of does that. You have my grandma praying, you know, in that section, which I think is really powerful. Yes. And then it's just a progression of like what it is like to be in a diaspora, in terms of like as a Black woman, essentially in a first world country, you know, in terms of Egypt coming in. I'm not where I used to be spiritually, also physically. Yeah. And then foreigner, I really kind of honed in on that in terms of like, I am a foreigner in New Zealand. I'm a citizen, like, you know, practically, but I guess in terms of like just being the color of my skin, I look like a foreigner, but also like the facet of like being a Christian, and, you know, heaven being my home. So it's super multifaceted, but I think the journey really is the first 4 or 5 songs is really just me showing you, I guess, my faith in a diaspora, but also my faith in my journey. You know, Clouds is one of my favorite songs because, it's my testimony with God. It's like every time I look away, if I look to God, everything becomes clear. But then around Skin and Fade, actually Vulnerable. Vulnerable is really kind of like the game changer because it really lyrically, I mean, the song is a vibe. It's one of my favorite songs I've ever done. Yes. But lyrically, it's really just saying like part of being in a diaspora and part of my journey has been my vulnerability with God. And then from that moment onwards, I talk about really specific, I'm being really intentional. The stuff that I talk about, skin, obviously racism and what I encountered as a child, getting bullied here in New Zealand for the color of my skin at a school that I went to. 2 Letters is a song about my dad. I have a distant relationship with my father, and then, you know, Desperate, Alabaster, all that. It's very, very vulnerable. So the journey is just like, I'm inviting you into what it's like to be, you know, someone growing up in a diaspora, also with my faith. But essentially, I'm just saying, hey, I'm going to start talking about really explicit, specific stuff in this album and the next 2 to come. So that's really the journey, I would say, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, no, everything you were saying, these are things that I think came up as I was listening, having multiple listens of the songs. And I brought the questions to you because I think it's easy to see parts of a testimony, but when you actually hear the testimony and it's like, I entered this situation, I was in this situation, I came out of it, or even while you're in the middle of it, I think that that's really powerful for anyone experiencing very similar things, especially because these are very relatable things that most people do experience. I'm going to go, I have an order, but I'm going to actually go backwards because I was re-listening to our interview. I was re-listening to our interview yesterday before this, and we talked about, and yeah, we went on a tangent. We were just like talking and I loved it, but we were just talking.
I love that.
We spoke about two things. We spoke about God as our Heavenly Father and actually relating to him as like daddy and father, and how sometimes it's super cringe when you have like a not the best relationship with your own parents and now you're trying to relate to God as a parent. And then we also spoke about like, I think you had mentioned like your relationship with your dad, and we were talking about that. And then I remember you saying, oh, Paula, there's going to be a song on this album that once you hear it, you'll know.
No way, I said that. It would have been 2 letters.
You said that. Letters. It was 2 letters. And I remember going through your Instagram when you posted about 2 letters and you had like the clues that you were leaving through it. And I started to be like, oh, maybe like this is that song, like Distant Parent.
It was meant to be on Not For Sale. It was meant to be an offer sale. And then, so like, it was meant to be an offer sale. I wrote it like, I think that's the oldest song on the album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it has to be. I wrote it in, Chris Howland sent me the beat 2017 or 2018. Okay. And I wrote it. Yeah, it was made for an offer sale. And then I think I didn't put it on because I wasn't healed yet. I remember God being like, don't put it on until you actually feel like you can talk about it, like without, and that's why I never put it on. But now I'm in a good place with it. So yeah, it's definitely not for sale. It's definitely not. I'm sorry, it's definitely two letters. Yeah,
yeah, it's two letters. Yeah, and I literally remember writing that down. Like, I think this is it. And
yeah,
interesting. Cool. You say that God told you don't post it, like don't share it yet. You haven't healed from it. One thing that I have learned and been learning is that as creatives, you as an artist, producer, writer, we cannot create and produce from a place of like anger and animosity and even just like pain, because what we create isn't to heal, it spreads it basically.
Exactly.
It literally gives people ammunition to continue in their pain and suffering as opposed to doing healing. So you even saying that it needed to come out now makes sense. But for those that don't really know, like, and of course share as much or as little as you would like, but what is Two Letters about, and like how did you get to a place of healing where you could actually share that in a healing way?
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about it because I mean that's why I put on the album. I'm in a good place to talk about it now. Basically, yeah, it's about my my earthly father, my dad, and I grew up. I have an incredible mother. Like, my mom is my hero. She's the strongest person I know. And yeah, unfortunately, for most of, if not my whole life, never really had my earthly dad be present. And it's been a huge journey, especially being the only girl. I have 2 brothers. So me and my siblings went through it. My younger brother had a different journey because he was born here. But me and my older brother have been going through since we were born in Africa, since, before we moved here. And it's been a big journey because for so long, and I think I talked about this last time, I could connect with, I grew up in church. My mom is an intercessor, loves the Lord, kept us in church even when we didn't want to go, you know what I mean? Like, just loves, facts, African mom, classic, and then, it really became real for me around 16, 17 years old, my walk with God. But I could never connect, like I said last time, with God the Father. And it was because of my relationship with my dad. It was almost like I would see him in the same, I'll see God in the same filter, God the Father in the same filter as my dad. And I think, so last time we spoke, I was still, that's when I probably would have been going to counseling around that time, and it took a good maybe year of just like really picking apart just the filters that I had, with my relationship with God the Father, in terms of all the lies that I believed because of the rejection I faced with my earthly dad. So it's been a journey, man. But I would say around 2020, maybe like mid 2020, I really feel like I reached a point where a year of solid intentional counseling and therapy, I reached a point where I felt like I was genuinely free. And unfortunately, even right now, there's still no relationship, and I want reconciliation. But obviously, reconciliation comes in two ways, and it has to be genuine. And unfortunately, I just not there with my dad yet. I'm praying that it will be. But I'm at a, even for me to even say that, girl, to be like, I want reconciliation. That is the grace of God. That is like, I was not here 2-3 years ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what the song is about. And it's really just me. I love this song because I feel like, initially, I think it was the second verse, I'd mentioned father, like my dad, but I ended up making it just kind of if you have a distant relationship with your dad or your mom, you can relate to it. Yeah. I love this song because in the chorus, I'm simply just saying, like, this is what it is. I'm not going to deny the reality of the situation, but what I am going to do is invite God in it. Mm-hmm. And the idea of two letters is like one for the old, one for the new. One for the old, I'm not going to ignore my scars. I'm not going to ignore, because they made me who I am. I'm not going to ignore that. At the same time, I'm going to make room for the new of what God could do. I'm believing one day we'll reconcile. I'm believing one day that God will. And if that never happens, like, God is still good. Bible says all things work for my good. So if that never happens, it's working for my good. If it happens, it's working for my good, whatever way God has it. But it's me simply saying, I'm not going to let unforgiveness hold me to not give into what God has for me. So it's really a song of forgiveness. And the idea of just the two letters is one is the old, me embracing my humanity and my scars. Mm-hmm. But one is the new, me being open to a future where we could reconcile despite all that I've been through and not giving into bitterness or unforgiveness. So that's what the song is about. And it's every time I listen to it, man, I feel God's presence. And I'm really believing that people are going to get healed emotionally and or just encouraged to want to, reconcile with any distant parents.
And also be encouraged to actually seek out healing, because I think
exactly
you were really intentional here. Like, it wasn't, you had to essentially be the grown up here and say, I'm not going to sit and stay in this. I'm going to go to therapy, heal where I can, and be available. So when reconciliation happens, I'm my best and most available self for that to happen. And again, like healing, coming from a place of healing, as opposed to, coming from unhealing and allowing space for the enemy to just move mad. So honestly, I just want to applaud you for how vulnerable you are on this album. I think it's so refreshing to see in a Christian artist. Like, it's so nice. I'm like, I can listen to this and actually feel like a normal human being, because I'm going through things and like, it's not all just God is good, God is great. Because he is good and he is great, but life
definitely
sometimes is tough. So thank you for that. And I think it makes sense to kind of go on to Vulnerable, which, is one of my favorite songs, but do not quote me, because I say that about every single song I'm about to...
Me too. It changes every day, so...
My favorite song is like... I also said that about, Skin and Priceless. But can you tell us a bit about Vulnerable? You say that's a song where it kind of changes in the track list. Can you tell us about Vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, Vulnerable is, I believe, in my mind, when I think of track lists, it's a story for me. I'm telling a story. Yeah. So I think for me, Vulnerable is that chapter in the book that's like, oh, things are shifting now. And it really, I felt opens, made room for me to be very, very, like, vulnerable and very authentic, and just like, it's really me saying, like the chorus, all they see is mountain moments, the highlight reels that I show them, but God sees the real me. That's the heart of the song, and that's the heart of the album, I would say, in terms of like, I'm trying to show people the real me. And I'm excited because I've low key, I've tried to not work on the next album. I normally would start soon, but I've just been like, hold yourself back, enjoy this one, enjoy this moment. But I feel like I had this idea the other day that's kind of like a part 2 of 2 letters, and it's almost like this Diaspora Vulnerable, the song has really opened space for my next releases to be even more like real and authentic and even more open. And Vulnerable really is that song for this album. So lyrically and thematically, I think it's just me being like, hey, I am broken and I need a savior. At the same time, like, it's like this constant pull. You see in the Bible, I'm a Bible nerd, so I'm sorry if I go on a tangent, but you see in the Bible with every with every character in the Bible, with every person in the Bible, you see this like push and pull. Jacob, Israel. This like on 1 minute he's Jacob, 1 minute is Israel, and God continually calling him Israel and Jacob. And I think we all kind of have that. Simon, Peter, we all have that of like. some moments I'm doing really well and I'm a faith-filled woman of God, and then some moments I need a savior. You know what I mean? Like I'm a hot mess. So vulnerable is really me being like I'm gonna be honest with you as listeners of this music, of my platform, of this album, that I have high moments and I have low moments. You know, one line that's real subtle, but my friends are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, you know, is the pre-chorus. These bad dreams ain't as bad as they seem, but I know that you're up when I'm falling asleep. And for me, sleep, sometimes I struggle with it. Sometimes I get really bad dreams. So I'm just being really, really authentic, and just, you know, the shift of like, I prayed for God to give me better dreams, and sometimes it doesn't happen, but changing my mindset to be like, actually, I don't have to be afraid of these dreams because you're up as I'm falling asleep. You see what I mean? So it's like really inviting God. And yeah, I think yesterday I felt God give me this really gem that I want to say. That's amazing. It was like, when you embrace your humanity, it gives room for you to rely on my divinity.
Oh my God.
That's a bar, right? I'm going to use it in a song. Like
when a song.
Yeah, I have to. Like when I embrace God, when I embrace my humanity, like when I'm honest with where I'm at and what I want, and I'm open and authentic with that to God, I can rely on his divinity. You know what I mean? That's what I think vulnerable is really about. It's me embracing my humanity, but also saying, hey, as I embrace my humanity, I also can rely on God's divinity. So that's really like the depth of the lyrics, which I think has a lot of depth to it. But production-wise, man, Chris Howland. I worked on the sense and like the vibe of the song, but it was a different vibe. It's actually on one of my album mode videos. If you go looking at one of the earliest ones, the original version was like an R&B cool beat, but it just never felt right. And then I sent to Chris, I was like, hey, I trust you. What do you think should change? And he just sends me this, like, the drums and the bass are just K-Tronada, just crazy like vibe. So Chris really, really transformed the song. Like it was really good before, and he just made it incredible. Like, so I love the song. I really like it.
Yeah, you and Chris Howland are like the classic duo. Like you've done quite a few songs together, and we
got great chemistry.
Yeah, always.
Even though we've never met, it's funny.
Life, right? Life in 2022.
Wild.
Like, all my favorite people, I'm like, have not met. And like, it's so funny. This is, okay, we always go on tangents whenever we speak. But
hey, let's do it.
It will come back somehow. On last Saturday, so whenever people are watching or listening to this, but I basically had the privilege of hosting a women's event. So it was like...
Let's go. That's awesome. That's amazing.
God is good.
Get it, girl.
I'll be trying. And it was a women's event called Renewed. And it was basically about how we as women can be renewed after feeling super exhausted from this pandemic and just overwhelmed by many transitions happening in our lives. And it was like, you know, young women, 20s to 30s, whatever.
That's
so,
cool.
You know, people there were like starting new jobs, moving across country, getting married, having kids, that kind of thing. It was very like, you know, turbulent, exciting, but big time in all of our lives. And I got invited to host it, and the woman who runs it, I've never met her in person, but we've been social media friends for ages.
No way.
So we finally meet, and I'm just like, oh wow, this is amazing. The reason I bring it up is what you said about the end of our humanity is when we rely on divinity was said at that event. I kid you not.
No way.
That's why when you were speaking, I was like, where have I heard this before? And I realized one of the women there was speaking about how she lost her mum during the pandemic. Like her mum had a heart attack, she passed away, and how she had this whole journey of like leaving the faith and then like coming back.
Wow.
And to end it off, she basically said that during that time, she learned that it was at the end of her humanity. Like she got to a point where I don't want to live. My mum is no longer on this earth. To the end of humanity, like I can't do anything anymore. And that's where God showed up, and it was complete divinity that she's still alive and breathing and part of faith and stuff. And I just remember being like, wow, that's so impactful. Like in our lives, you know, in John it says that we will have trials in this life. We will have trials.
Yeah.
Take heart, you have overcome. We have victory. And like, big paraphrase, by the way. No one in the comments like that's not what it says. I don't know the scripture like that, but I kind of know what I mean. And I just remembered and was just reminded of the fact that in life we will have these trials. These trials will come, but we need to realize that once we actually let go of this, my humanity means I am limited here.
Yeah.
That's where divinity steps in. Like when the scripture says, in my weakness, your strength is made perfect.
Exactly.
Like, because now no one can say, oh, I just made it because I'm strong or I'm talented.
Yeah.
And there's something you said, sorry, I'm getting really excited.
No, you're fine. I love this. I love this a lot.
You said in the last interview where you said, we as creatives, we as artists and creators, we need to get out of it's just my giftings, it's just my talent, it's just my skills. And get back to a place of like, no, it's literally I'm being used as a vessel right now. Like my humanity has ended here because my humanity is limited, but God's divinity is unlimited. So once we get to a point of this is really blessing and touching people, if we get into a head of, oh my gosh, I'm so talented, oh my gosh, I'm so amazing, we now give ourselves too much attention and too much like
credit. Yeah.
So this is just to actually go back full circle.
No, this is good. This is good.
Being healed, you being in a place of I can now share my testimony from a place of it gets better, you get the victory, and the message you're giving to people is it gets better, you get the victory. We have already overcome. Keep going, as opposed to I'm so great, I brought myself out of these situations. Because these are big stuff that you talk about in this album. Like, you couldn't just naturally heal yourself from like feeling these things about a distant parent. You can just naturally heal yourself from like racism, like
literally,
things, you have to have divine intervention to actually be transformed and brought closer to who God has made you to be. So this is just to say thank you for sharing that vulnerability on this album, because you didn't actually have to, you didn't need to. So we appreciate it. So yeah.
Thanks, girl. This is good. I love this. This is a great conversation.
We always do this. We always go on like complete tangents, and I love it.
I love it.
So I wanted to talk about the song Priceless featuring V Rose. We're big fans of V Rose here at SheHH. She was on the second
Me too.
She's incredible and amazing and just such a genuine person. Like when I spoke to her, I was just like, can we be friends, please? Like, you're amazing. And I believe this is your first time collaborating together?
Yeah, it is. It's our first time working on a song together.
So how did
Definitely not the last.
happen? Not the last.
Definitely not the last. Yeah, so we were on, I can't remember what it was. I think it was one day. She was hosting like I cannot remember what it was, but it was like an interview vibe, and it was one day myself, V, and someone else that I can't remember. I have a hard memory. Don't crucify me in the comments. But it was some kind of like, it was one day's platform, and it was featuring myself and V and someone else. And then it was on Zoom. And during that, she just like private chats me. She's like, oh, maybe it was Instagram. She just messaged me and was like, yo, what's your number? Let's link. Because we'd followed each other. We'd followed each other on Instagram, but like I think we're both busy, and we had an opportunity to really be like, hey, I like what you're doing. So we literally during the thing we're like, messaging each other, and then maybe like the week after or a couple of days after, I can't remember, we ended up FaceTiming, and we chopped it up for like 2-3 hours, and we just like shared each other's story. And I'm just, V is a vet. Like she has literally been in the industry for a hot minute. She stayed, my favorite thing about her, she stayed true to like who she is and her faith, despite all that she's been through. She's been through it too in the industry. She's seen the highs and the lows of the industry, and signed contracts. Now I think she's unsigned now, or she's like an independent artist. Now she's now his own label. And what's crazy was when we chatted, she was like thinking of starting her label. So I need to message her and be like, yo, last time we chatted, you were like, God was speaking to you about that. And now it's like, it's cool to see come true. But long story short, we chopped it up. And then a week after that conversation, the idea of Priceless came. And I was thinking the idea of Priceless is really just, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's just saying like what God's put inside me. Not just the gift, but just like the potential and the sound that God has given me. Like the devil can't take that away. He can try to distract me and all, this, that, the third with money or opportunity or whatever. But at the end of the day, it drives him nuts that he can't take that away. And I felt like V was the best person to really like that encompasses that thought, because she's been in the industry for more than 10 years, and is still like not just making moves and like doing amazing things on the platform, but like you said, she's a genuine person. She loves God. Her faith is real. Like, you know what I mean? It's not just like, she's not just, a lot of people who've been in the industry for as long as she has been have either faded away in terms of like their faith, or have made, questionable decisions, but she's genuinely just stayed true to her faith. So I thought she was the best person to really take that theme and run with it, because that's her life. That's how she lives. And for me, someone who's been in the industry for maybe half as long as she's been in, it's something that I, want to encompass. Like, it's longevity, right? Like, it's about longevity, about staying true to who God's called you to be in the midst of having a platform. So that's what that's about. And I thought V just killed it, man. Her voice is crazy. She is.
She can rap. She can sing. I'm like, girl.
Mate, I want her on every. I want on every album. That's what I'm gonna say. I want her on every album. So
please,
hopefully that can happen.
We will happily listen to that. We will message her like, hey, please do it. I know you're busy. I know you've got a busy schedule, but just just for us, please, just make it happen,
please.
So to kind of go up from like a bit of a high to a little bit of a lower, in terms of vibes and feels, Fade. So we're talking about Fade, the song. You talk about grief, for real. And I feel like after a pandemic where we're literally seeing the loss of lives, like in the thousands and the hundreds of thousands worldwide, this was super relatable. You, in the artwork and in the stuff you shared on social media, you showed a text message where you basically quote, "It feels like there's a dark cloud over you." And I feel like that was so relatable, because I remember just feeling so helpless, like literally hearing this person has passed away, or seeing like, on the news that the cases were rising. So it was just a real big time of grieving, like, wow. So this song felt very, very, very relatable. But I just want to know, and like I said, feel free to share as much or as little as you would like, but I want to know what the experiences were behind it that made this song come to pass.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you pretty much spoke for most of it in terms of it's about grief. For me, my specific experiences, and I talk about it in the first verse and the second verse, is I've lost my auntie. So the first verse focuses on my auntie passing away. I think it was 2019. Oh no, actually earlier, 2017, my first tour. So literally my first, my very first, like, as in booked like 6 shows in America. And I booked, I think, 4 shows in the UK. And literally, I'm talking like we're leaving on Tuesday, and Sunday, we get a call that my auntie passed away in a car crash. And then like having 30 something hours to decide, do we go on tour? It was obviously before the pandemic, so we could have flown home. We could have taken that time to go home, like it was before the pandemic. And then, I'm talking to my mom, and I remember thinking, I'm going to cancel the tour. Like, because this auntie, like, she was like a second mom to me. Like, it was, even to this day, it's heartbreaking to think about. But I just remember my mom, man, being like, no, we're going on tour. She would have wanted you. And I know her. She would have, like, wanted me to go on tour. And, like, she loved God, and she would have wanted me to complete the assignment that God had for me. So that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. As in, like, that's what I meant before about, like, being on stage, performing, doing Q&As, taking photos, and people are just so excited. And you're like grateful. You're like, oh my gosh, like, you're taking your time to come and watch me perform and like love my music and what God's doing. So I was grateful. I wasn't like, super, super grateful people are even showing up, right? At the same time, crying in the hotel and not knowing what to feel, being exhausted mentally, physically, like, just, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And so I talk about that in the first verse in terms of like, didn't know how much to show. Obviously, I was still dealing with it. And then second verse focuses on last year. So I wrote the song because of the second verse. My grandpa, my mom's father, passed away last year. Was it May or April? And yeah, that was crazy because that in itself, he had diabetes. But it just happened. It was sudden. Like we knew he was sick, and like my mom's cousin is a doctor in Zimbabwe, has his own private clinic. So it wasn't like, lack of resources or anything. It just like it happened so quickly. 1 minute we're talking to him, and I'm really close to my grandparents, like my mom's parents. I'm super close with them. And literally we're talking on like a Monday, and we're like, okay, they're going to drive them from the farm they stay at to the main city, a 2-3 hour drive. And then we're going to catch up with them when they get there. So they drive, they get there, we catch up with them, the following day, and then we go to sleep, and then we wake up and he all of a sudden passed away. So it wasn't like we saw it coming, and it hit me, man. I'm not going to lie. It hit me because I didn't see it coming, because I was just talking to him. And also just like being a pandemic. And then on top of that, so that's the next thing, I talk about, say goodbye to my grandpa, Kenneth. Couldn't make the burial in a pandemic. That was the kicker. Like not being, even to this day, our borders are still closed. We still haven't been able to go back home. And we might not for a very long time. So with this Omicron variant, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's quite bleak in terms of when we'll actually get a chance to go. It's one thing to lose someone, right? But then when you actually get to go to the funeral and look at the grave, there is some closure there of like, you get to like a more, and we still haven't got that opportunity. So I'll be honest, even right now, I don't think I have full closure. But yeah, that was hard. That was a difficult thing. So for me, I had to write this song because it was a form of therapy on top of going to therapy. But then what I like about this, my favorite thing about it, because I realized when I was going through that, I didn't plan to write a song about grief. I actually never intended to plan it. But what happened was I realized I was like, okay, I need some music. I need some worship music. And I would play worship music, and it annoyed me. Like, because when you're going through grief, you're like, oh, I don't want this positive crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, legit, you're like, I don't want, like, what a beautiful name, I Love You Hillsong. But I'm like, I don't want to. And I just couldn't find it. All the songs about grief that are like there are super dark, like super like, as in like I'm depressed, and I couldn't find something that was honest, as in like embracing the humanity, but at the same time was hopeful.
Yeah.
I remember literally thinking, Holy Spirit, I don't know what to do. There's nothing I can listen to this. And he was like, write a song about it. So what I love about this song, I'm very, very intentional about, like, I'm trying to find my way home. Sometimes I don't know. My mind tells me don't run to you, but I know you are the safest place, and grief will fade away as I run to you. So I was just pumped to write a song that is real and is not sugarcoating or downplaying the effects and the darkness and the hurt of grief, but is also being like, God, I know even if I'm in this dark space, I know that you are the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, it's really pointing back to God in the midst of such a really difficult season, really difficult moment. So that's the heart behind the song. It's still something that I'm dealing with, I would say. And, I say grief will fade away, but at the start, that little monologue, I say grief doesn't really go away, but it just kind of, the weight of it becomes weaker. And that's what the song is about. So I'm believing, I have a lot of friends who've lost people in the last year even, and I'm excited for them to hear it, and hopefully that it will encourage them to be like, hey, it's okay to not be okay. And just understand that God's okay with you not being okay in this season. So that's what the song is about.
Even when you said about writing it in the midst of experiencing it, I think that's really powerful, because a lot of what our testimonies are is, I experienced this, I came out of it, I overcame, which is a blessing and is very encouraging. But sometimes when you're in the middle of it, like you say, you don't want to hear the positives. Like, you don't want to hear, God is good, it's going to be okay. Like, you're like, no, it's very easy to say that when nothing has happened to you, or you're not experiencing it anymore. So to actually hear this was written in the middle of it, I think when you are in the middle of grieving, to have someone else also grieving explain to you that these are the emotions I'm feeling, but I'm still hopeful, is probably more encouraging and more reassuring than someone who feels like they've come out of their grieving period. So again, I'm just amazed by your vulnerability in this album and your willingness to share it, and also be safe with your own emotions, because people it's not always everything that you need to share. So the way you shared this album has been really, really beautiful, and I think it will just be such a blessing to people who listen to it, for real.
The person at the end is my grandpa. I forgot to say this. So I see God's faithfulness, Paula, and I'm going to try to say this without crying, but literally 2 weeks before, okay, I'm not going to cry. 2 weeks before, 2 weeks before he passed away, I just had this idea. I felt God was like, just record them, like just call them, because I call them. We used to talk like every second day, and I just felt like God was like, you got a studio, just call them, and I have like 20 minutes worth of like just us having a yarn, and it's just really special, like just to have that. So when he passed away and I wrote the song, it was just like, really cool to have him, because I got them to pray for me at the end. So I have like 5 minutes of them praying for me. And so you hear him, if you understand Shauna, you can hear what he's saying. Like he's literally praying for me. And I still can't listen to it like properly without crying, but it's just really special, like to have him and my grandma on the album. So I see God, that thought of like recording them, it makes me cry, because I'm like, that was God being like, he knew what was going to happen. And now, like, even my mom, like, that was her dad. And now she has 20 minutes worth of like, if she, like the other day, it was really, I'm going to say this without crying, because it was really, really beautiful. But the other day she was like, I played it for her and she was crying and she was like, wow, I think I'd start to forget the sound of his voice. Oh. And to hear that recording, it's just really, 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 really special. Like you can hear even the way that I sing the song, some notes are not accurate because I couldn't. It's really hard for me to sing because I was going through it. So some notes are a little bit off, but I kept it that way because I was like, I want it to be real. Like this is what that's what it was. So yeah, it's really cool to have him on there and to have him on the album, really.
Yeah, and at the end you go, love you. Yeah, you say, okay, I love you. Speak to you soon. Oh, my heart. Yeah, this is wow. That's such a beautiful song. And yeah, I was even going to touch on the Shona that you speak, because even with the name of Diaspora, you have like foreigner, you have like loads of stuff related to like us being from here, but also not from here. And having that culture and heritage. And then you also talk about race and stuff like that. Like you really... I applaud you. I know I've been like gushing this whole interview, but I applaud how you actually like handled these like big topics in this album. Because especially after it's been a couple years since you released something, you really could have just come back with like a bubblegum pop, God is good, let's all smile, jump and play, type of album. But you didn't. You gave us real. And I really do want to go through loads of songs, but I'll maybe just, let's talk about why it was important for you to like touch on topics like culture and family, race. Like you talk about that in Skin, you talk about, you have like Shona being spoken on. Like I remember you saying that you were going to, but like to hear it, it's differently. So I just want you to kind of talk about why that was important for you to include in this album.
Yeah, I think, it was really important for me because number one, it's my testimony, right? And I think the last couple of years, even before, like obviously George Floyd was a staple moment, right? Even before that, I feel like I was already on a journey of really understanding my culture and embracing my culture and embracing, who I am, being a kid that grew up in a diaspora, right? And like, touching on Skin, like I don't know if you're going to ask a question about it, but I'll just touch on a little bit. When I was young, I got bullied because of the color of my skin. And I think it really saw me become a bit insecure about not just the color of my skin, but about where I come from. And because it wasn't welcome in certain space. And obviously being young, being a teenager, all you want to do is fit in. All you want to do is, feel like you belong, right? And so I feel like for a lot of my teenage years, I didn't embrace my culture because every time I did, either I was made fun of or I cared too much about other people's opinions and I found my validation in other people's opinions. So I didn't embrace who I really was. Not until I was at university and in my 20s where I was like, actually, like my culture is amazing. And where I come from, it's so beautiful how, God made all of us different. Like it's even the idea of like the body of Christ, right? Like God intentionally made different cultures and we all bring something. A couple of my best friends are Pacific Islander, and we always talk about how like we all bring something different to the table in our cultures. There's some beauty. There's obviously some negative things in every culture. culture, but there's a lot of positivity and a lot of positive perspectives. And I think from my culture, you talked about why I talk about family and all that. My culture, family is a huge part of our culture in terms of like you honor your elders, you honor your family, you honor your language. And so for me, that was really important for me to showcase that, because that is my testimony, that's my story, but that's also the story of my home where I come from, Zimbabwe. That's a huge staple is Shona, a huge staple is Ndebele, a huge staple is, speaking your language and owning it, and it's communication, it's love, it's everything. Even like, we talked before, it's not recorded, but we had a conversation about relationships. Even that, like there's some cultural things that come into play. So yeah, it's really this album, this theme of embracing diaspora and embracing the culture that I come from is really about, it's a love letter to my country. It's a love letter to my culture, to just say, hey, I never used to understand this because I was bullied for it, but I'm at a place of healing and maturity now where I love you just the way you are, and I want to represent you. Not just represent you well, but just to represent you and say, hey, this is who I am. Yeah, that's why I kind of went that route of including Shona. And it's funny because a lot of people, even when I first started, I never used to make it like, not that I was hiding that I was Zimbabwean, but I was just like, oh, I'm from New Zealand. And a lot of people thought I was from New Zealand. Like a lot of people didn't even actually know I was Zimbabwean. So that's why I was like, you know what, I need to like really make this clear. I love living in New Zealand, but I am a Zimbabwean and I love my country and I love my culture. So that's what it's about, really.
I don't know if it's the same in New Zealand, but people don't really understand that there's like multiple countries in Africa. So unless you don't, you actually need to like be like, this is what we do in Zimbabwe. Like it's different from like other countries. Like we're a different country, because if you don't, they have this idea now that, okay, I've met CASS and she says this about New Zealand, about Zimbabwe. So all Africans do this and everywhere.
Exactly.
So you really have to be specific about your country, because people just don't know.
They don't.
It's so exhausting having to explain it. But I feel like that's why a lot of us in the diaspora have been a lot more intentional about like naming, like, oh, I'm from Congo, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Ghana. Like, learn these names. Like, the continent is rich and beautiful and stunning.
Exactly.
Everyone is so different. Please get to know. Like, it's worth it.
Like there's similarities, but like very small. We're very, very different. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Like it's multiple countries. So that's so beautiful in their own right, in their own way. And I think what's cool, I mentioned George Floyd before. What's cool about, obviously that was devastating what happened. And it was, I think for a lot of white people, it really was like an eye opener.
100%.
And I have a love and hate relationship with that fact, but it is what it is. But it is what it is. But essentially, I feel like from that moment, I had a lot of people be like, hey, I actually want to know, which I think was kind of cool. The people were starting to be open to want to like know the different facets of Africa, know that, there's different aspects to different cultures in Africa. So I'm just trying to own where I'm from and just open people's eyes like, hey, it's a beautiful culture, and Africa in general is a beautiful continent that's, like you said, rich with culture. So, yeah.
Oh, no, definitely. And that's why the diaspora is so rich, because we
bring
facets to these new places that we're now born and raised in. So I think it's worth people caring to know, because if they enjoy and experience all these like new things, like, oh, we bring food, we bring language to these new countries, it's worth them understanding like the heritage behind that as well. So
exactly,
thank you for doing that, especially because I know a lot of your fans are white, so I'm like, this is a big win. This is really a big win.
Yeah.
But I have so many questions, but I'm gonna ask this last one about the song, about a song, and then just more about like you in general. But I would be amiss if I don't mention this, because this collaboration is one of my favorites to have happened in the world, on God's green earth. CASS and Cortes is like my favorite. So Daily is one of my favorite songs to exist. I absolutely love that song. Cortes is one of my favorites in general, but
he's so good. I'm like, so good.
Underrated, or I just don't know.
I feel like, okay, and I'm going to say this to him. I feel like he doesn't realize how good he is. That's my opinion.
Insane.
He is so good.
he just, he has a bag and he just does it so well. Like,
in his bag.
100%. So when I saw, okay, there's a song feature. Do you know the first thing? Because obviously I got sent the album without the features' names on it.
Oh,
so
yeah, true. So you were blind.
I went back. All I had was the names of the songs. So I was listening to it. I was like,
oh, I never thought about that.
I thought it was a deliberate stylistic choice. You're like, send it to her without them.
Yeah. So let her guess.
I didn't even know if it was the right order because I got sent this a while ago. So I didn't know if it was it was only yesterday you posted the track list and I was like, oh, it is the okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense in the order. But I was listening to it and I'm like, this really sounds like Cortes. Oh, I wonder if it's him. Like, wow, okay, cool. And then you released you started doing your promo for it and I was like, it is him. I'm amazing. How did I know everything? Conversations is amazing.
Thank you.
I think with a song like that, you did need to have a feature to kind of have that conversation, if you like. But what was it like kind of working with him again? How did that process happen? And just tell us about the song.
So I love that you mentioned Daily because the reason why I got him on is because of Daily. So Daily, obviously, if people haven't heard, it's actually one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite feature. Actually, now that I said that out loud, it is my favorite feature I've ever done. I just think, the verse I gave him, I love that verse, and I love the song, and I love what he's about. But obviously the idea of Daily is really talking about needing God on the daily, right? And walking with him. And conversations thematically. So even before I thought about having a feature, thematically it's about prayer. That's what the song's about. Because I feel I think prayer for so long. I mean, I love my mom. She's a prayer warrior. She's amazing. But I think sometimes people think prayer is this intense, the way that my mom does it, which works for her and she's amazing at it. And I need it. I wouldn't be here without it. But I feel for a lot of new Christians per se, they think prayer is just intense, you have to be angry and you have to, you know what I mean? You have to be speaking in tongues and all these different things. And I think I've learned over the years that prayer is really just a conversation with God. And it's constant conversation. So that's really the heart of the song. And I found the old version of it too the other day. It was real funny. But there's so many different versions. And I remember thinking when I had the new version, and then I think in an old album mode, you can see me and Lily work on that little one that.
Yeah.
That's when it was from that moment, I was like, okay, it's album material. And I remember being okay, I need to have a feature on it. And I remember thinking in my mind, it makes sense to have Cortes on it because Daily kind of started the journey. To me, Conversations is Daily Part 2. That's my honest thoughts. It's just Daily is I need God on the daily. Conversations is I need to talk to God on the daily. And I think in the chorus, it's you are what I want daily. I did that on purpose.
I was going to mention that. I was going to say you did have a little nods towards daily.
Yeah, because it was me being and I wrote that first half later, so it was a different first half initially. But then that's what it was in terms of nod of it's really I not only need to walk with God daily, I need to talk with him daily. I need that conversation daily. So it just made sense to have him on. And I remember we worked really hard on his verse because he sent me a bunch of different versions. But I remember I really wanted it to especially the second half for it to fit. So he was super patient with me and super just on board on the vision that I had. And man, I genuinely love his music. And I told him, I was man, I'm so pumped he's on it. It fits. If you heard Daily, you'd understand how much the song works. It's not just a random feature. It's very, very intentional. So that's how it works. So after I got Cortes on, we worked a bunch on his verse. He just was super patient. He sent me a bunch of amazing ideas. In the end, we're both really happy. And it's one of my favorite songs. But I'm like you though. I say that every day. I'm oh, this is my favorite.
Listen, in all of these questions, it goes, this is one of my favorites. I'm that many favorites. That's not what the word means. But who's going to check me? I'm the one saying the questions. Who's going to check me and make me not?
Exactly. Period.
Exactly. No, I mean, you have so many amazing like collabs in this EP. Like I'm not going to go through all of them. I had questions about like working with Eris and so many other things, and like how you kind of were in your R&B bag in this album. Like there's so many songs that I was like, okay, guys, this might be your new sound. Like not just new sound, but I'm like, yes, this is
yeah, it. I mean, you're right. I think it is. I think R&B is my bag, and I think I always have a fusion of other genres. I always have like a song or two that's a bit different, but I think for me, R&B feels like when I was working on the album, I was like, I think I've found like the sound. Like this feels like this is it.
That's good. Oh, love that. I love to see it. I'm like, okay, so I mean, you mentioned a little bit that like Cloud might be your favorite song on the album, and this kind of feels like when you ask a mom like what's her favorite child, which you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Parents be choosing their favorites anyway, so you can choose your favorite. But do you have a favorite in this album so far?
It changes every day. Yeah. I'll be honest, it changes every day, but I think
in this moment.
Right now, Clouds. When is this dropping, by the way? How much can I say? When is this dropping?
This will be after the album's out. So the album will
Clouds comes out on Friday. First single.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And so you put on socials, maybe I should drop something on Friday. She thinks she's slick.
Hey, we all do it. Every time you see an artist say that, they're capping. They've submitted it. It's on iTunes, Spotify. They're capping. The weekend when he was like, "Hey, let me drop on Friday." It's already headed. But I would say Clouds because I don't know if I mentioned this earlier or not, but I actually, when I was writing the song or the album, really, I had a dream, and it was the first single. So like I'm big, like I said before, I believe God speaks to me in dreams. And so that felt like it was God being like, you need to finish this song, so be the first single. And I think it just lyrically for me, if you were to be like, what's the heart of my testimony? Like in terms of lyrically, I think Clouds is the best example of that, of all the songs, because, you know, like there's just so many little nods that if you don't know me, you won't fully get it. But if you know me, you get it. Like that, you know, my heart is still beating for you. It's a major line because I was suicidal when I was a teenager. You know what I mean? Like, you're walking with me, you're beside me. It's that idea of like daily conversations. Like, so it really encompasses like my whole story without being super explicit, but my whole story in a nutshell. So I'll say Clouds is probably my, right now, probably because I'm dropping on Friday. That's probably why. But,
Clouds on the mind.
Yeah, I'm listening to it every day and just trying to like, you know, sending it to people and things like that. But yeah, it changes every day. I don't think I can ever have an actual like, this is my favorite. Egypt is a favorite, obviously. I think it's a great intro. Yeah, I can't pick, man. I can't pick. But right at this moment, it's Clouds.
Love it. I mean, I'm very interested in seeing what other people's favorites will be because I feel like everyone will pick out something
What's your favorite, by the way? Because I sent it to 5 different people. You're the 6th person. And they all had like different ones, which I think is a good thing. They all had different. The one thing they all did say though, so all 5 of them were like, I love this song or this song, but they're all like, Clouds is one of my favorites. So it was cool to see that like, consistency in terms of, it was the one song everyone was like, this is great. So yeah, what's your, even right now, if you can say, what's your like
top? So okay,
or top 3? What's your like? Yeah, I'm interested to hear.
Top 3 is Priceless, Conversations, and maybe 2 letters.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's go.
That's a good number.
Yeah.
That's a good top 3.
Oh, Vulnerable's up there as well. So is Fade, Skin. Skin, the first time I listened to it, I was like, yes, I'm a black woman.
I was going to say, what was your reaction to Skin when you first heard it?
I remember because I was in my room and I was packing because like, as you, like off camera, we were talking about how I moved house. I was packing and like Skin came on and I was like, I'm a black woman. And it was like my melanin. I was like, yeah, like,
that's right.
Gassed. I was so gassed. Like I was like, okay, Cass, you did that. Like it was just like beautiful to experience, especially knowing that the audience that will hear this have maybe not seen a black female. Okay, because a lot of the black female artists are great at doing this, but a black female artist shout about being gorgeous brown-skinned woman. So that was just very liberating for me. So I enjoyed that a lot, a lot. The whole album is amazing. I think for different situations at different times, I would choose a different song. I think Two Letters,
that's cool,
because of that conversation we had. Just because while you were healing, I was also going along my own journey. I think we talked about this.
I think we did. Yeah, I was going to say, I think you went through a similar, like I think you did.
We talked about the whole daddy thing and how we were both like, oh, Grace, like, why are you calling God daddy? Like, you're such a babe.
Yeah.
He was fine with Lord and Savior. He was fine with God. And you're like, oh my gosh, my daddy, like my heavenly daddy.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. Till this day, this still doesn't like I think the best I can do is dad sometimes, but just by myself. I definitely wouldn't lead worship and be like, daddy, and that still doesn't and if you do it and you're listening to this and you're watching this, I'm not dissing you. All power to you. I love that you can do that. Bless your heart. Just for me personally, I probably just can't. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
Oh my gosh.
Childhood trauma. I couldn't do it.
Why are you doing that? We were just cracking up. And it made me laugh because I was like, we're laughing at this, but we both know that we're both going on journeys to recover. And we did.
Exactly.
And we have. And I still believe that we don't need to be, down saying daddy to feel like we've healed. And I think that's the reason Two Letters shouts out to me, because you can actually have distant relationships with family members who are very much physically present, but they are very much distant. And so I think even myself, when I was listening to that, the reason I said that at the time it was Two Letters was it felt very real to how I was experiencing at the time.
Yeah, wow.
Sometimes I experience joy and happiness, and we've talked about me being happy in a relationship and everything. So then I'm like, let me pick a more happy song because I now feel that more as my prominent feeling. So people listening to this will definitely come out with different songs because everything is relatable, but just at different stages of life. So it should be interesting to hear what people say, I think.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what people have to say, because the people that have heard it, like yourself, have just had different. It's been really cool to have different perceptions, and some of them obviously are white, some are black, so they have different favorites due to that, and different, some of male, female. So it's cool just to kind of hear you as a black woman as well, your thoughts on skin, because it's really a love letter to us, and it's really cool to hear that. That's really cool.
I love it. Okay. I don't want to end, but I'm just so aware of this is so long, but it's okay. I definitely wanted, like I said to you, this is obviously really big on the album, and getting people to really understand the thought process, the experiences behind it. But I'm also very big on, when I speak to artists, reminding them that you're beyond just being an artist. You're a human being, you're a person, you're loved by God. So I would love to give you space to just kind of talk about how you are. How's life for you? How's family? How's friends? How's relationships? How's everything going? I'm laughing because for everyone watching, I wasn't shading. We had a conversation.
Yeah, we talked before. We had a great conversation beforehand.
How's life in general?
Yeah, life is good. I'm not even just saying that. I feel like this is the first time in a while that I'm actually beating it in an interview. Life is really, really good. I think, this year started off really well. Obviously about to drop an album, but mentally, emotionally, physically, I lost heaps of weight. I'm in a good place. I know, girl, I'm in my fitness bag. I love it. And I'm in a good place. I'm still going to therapy. There's some new stuff. I can't remember if I said this on air or not. When I said the statement to you earlier, if it was in private but basically just for the sake of saying it, first time ever saying it as well publicly. Diaspora is part 1 of a trilogy of albums. So it's the first album of 3 albums that are going to be about my testimony. So that's why I'm still in therapy and God's healing me. And there's more stuff I got to say about my story, which is really cool. But on top of that, life in general is really good. My family's doing really well. We just renovated our house.
Nice.
It's doing really, really good. And my mom, man, she's doing really well. It's been a rough couple of years, obviously, with the stuff with my dad and family stuff. But I feel like the last 6, 7, 8 months, God has just been so faithful, bringing peace. And we're all just in a really good space. My brother's about to start university.
Wow.
Yeah, so which is crazy to me because he was born in 2003. So it's like that makes
he was born 5 minutes ago.
legit. Like he was a fetus 10 days ago. So it's just like, you're going to university. What, like, he's got a deep voice and talking to girls. I'm like, what the heck? What is going on? Like, but now, man, I'm totally putting his business out there. I'm sorry, buddy. But nah, like I'm in a good space. I'm in a really good place. And I think I'm excited for this year to see what God's gonna do. I'm producing for other artists as well. I'm like reading books, cooking. Like I have a life outside of this. And I think I'm in last time we spoke, I definitely hadn't had the whole my life together regarding like music was my life, which is good, but I hadn't had like boundaries on like I probably was a workaholic and things like that. But now I'm in a good space where I have great boundaries and yeah, life is good. Relationships, I said to Paula beforehand, there is no man right now. I am healing. God is working on me.
What I'm hearing is... I'm kidding.
I was like, you're in a Jada Pinkett vibes, Red Table Talk. Is that what we're doing right now? What I'm hearing.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I'm so glad, Cass. That makes me so happy. Honestly, so happy. And I think one thing I've loved about this interview is you've been a real big advocate for therapy, like for Christians go to therapy. And I think there's so much taboo around that. And I think around the time we started that was what, 2018? 19? Okay. We spoke 2019 December. And that was around the time that I was like, so I think I started therapy 2017 or 2018. But when we had conversations and you were like, oh yeah, I'm thinking of doing this, I was just like, okay, I'm going to do that too because I want to heal as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
Having you like publicly like talk about it and say that, okay, this album came from a place of I can actually heal now because I've done the work of working in Christ, working in the Word, and also going to therapy is such a big advocate for what so many Christians actually need but have been too scared to do for so long. So thank you.
Can I just say, just to add a tangent, so God kind of showed me, like Jesus kind of models a form of therapy in the Garden of Gethsemane. So he before he had a conversation with God, like we all talk about how he's like, oh, take this cup from me, not my will, but yours be done. Like we all quote that. But just before that, he has this conversation with the disciples. I think it's in Matthew 26 or Matthew, I'll add it in later. But he basically, he has this conversation with the disciples, his like all the three of them, his inner circle, Peter, James, and John. And he says something like, he's like, I am overwhelmed to the point of death and I'm filled with sorrow. And it's like such a dark, when you really like point it out, it's like, whoa, but that's our savior. Like our Messiah said that out loud. And what is that? That's therapy. Like you're talking to someone and you're honest, and then after that, he went to God and he was like, not my will, but yours be done. And I remember God showing me that and was like, that is so important that you can sit down with someone. Obviously back then there were no therapists, but now you've got paid people professionals that you can sit down and be like, hey, I am overwhelmed. Jesus really modeled that. And I think we don't talk about that enough. Like he actually modeled a form of therapy in the Bible. Good. So who are we to think if he's the savior, never sinned, never made a mistake, died on the cross for our sins, who are we to think we don't need to do the same thing? You know what I mean? So I'm not just an advocate. I believe it's biblical. I believe it's in the scripture. And I believe that like everyone needs it. No matter we had a good childhood, bad childhood, life is life, man. Especially the last couple of years of this pandemic. Shoot, we all need it.
We all need it. Listen, do it online if you need to. Because I was listening back to our last conversation where I asked you what you would like your legacy to be. And obviously you gave a really nice Christian answer. What did
I say? What did I say? I can't remember.
A nice Christian answer. You said you would like people to know you as someone who genuinely loved God and helped people point back to God.
That is a great answer.
It's a great answer. Like, no shit, it's a great answer. But I would just love to see, like, has anything, like, obviously not changed because you still want to do that, but has anything been added to that? Like, what would you like to be remembered by?
Yeah, I think it's the same, but it's evolved. Like, I think now it's more specific. as in, yes, I want people to remember me for loving God and all that, but I also want to I want people to actually be healed. And I think obviously when you think healing, you can think sickness, but I'm not talking like emotional healing, because I've gone through emotional healing the last couple of years. And so like, I want people to be able to, in whatever shape or form, whether it's my music or it's this interview or it's, what I tweet or whatever the case may be, I want people to be able to like genuinely be pointed towards emotional healing. Because I feel like, once again, like God's really been speaking to me about like, you get saved, salvation, amazing. But a lot of people have salvation, but they're not free. Like they have salvation, but emotionally they're not free. Emotionally, they have a lot of baggage. And it's the sad thing about baggage, man. A lot of it is not our fault. Childhood trauma, stuff that happens to us. We didn't choose it. It's not something that we chose. So I feel like God's really given me just a revolution in my mind and a revelation of like, he doesn't just want me saved and speaking Christianese. He wants me to be free. He wants me to be whole. And so that I would say it's the same thing. I want my legacy to point to God and people to want to be close to God. But I would take it a step further and say to actually be emotionally healthy and to be emotionally free. Because it's funny, like I was saying to my friend the other day, I was like, man, the counseling that I've done and where I'm at today, it makes sense that I'm not in a relationship, because I feel like I wouldn't have been ready. And I still, even right now, I don't think I'm ready, because I'm still like, there's a lot of stuff that happened to me that I got to like be able to get healing from. So that's what I would say. I would say the same thing, but I'll go a step further and say, I want people to, whatever way that they see me or whatever platform they hear me on, that they would be pointed towards actually being emotionally healthy. And this is for Christians and non-Christians, for everybody, pastors and leaders and, people that serve in different teams, no matter where you are in life. I just want you to be able to be emotionally healthy, because I found the more that I've become emotionally healthy, girl, the more that I can hear God clearly, the more that I can see God and everything. And I just couldn't see that before because of all the filters. So I would say step further, legacy, point people towards God, point people towards, God's purpose. But I would say even more, a step further, just to be emotionally healthy.
I love that so much. And isn't it great that as we progress in life and get older and stuff like that, we learn more of more of like what that vision is, even more like precisely, because it was like, let people know about God, lead them to God. Then it's like, lead them to emotional healing in God. Then it's like, as you live it, you start to like, it gets more and more like tunnel vision and clearer, and it's
exactly.
So thank you. Thank you so much. Like, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being your authentic self.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for allowing me to like, hey, can I just say thanks for being a safe space? Like, not many interviews are like this. So thank you for actually being a safe space. This was fun.
Oh, thank you, Cass. No, that's what SheHH is all about. Like, we really want to know the artists and as people, which is why I asked. Like, I think, we enjoy your music, and we're like, when's the new album, Cass? And everyone's like, when's the new album, Cass? So it's like, hey, how's Cass doing to make the new album?
Yeah, so exactly.
Thank you for doing that.
At least now I hope you see why I took so long. Like, it wasn't just like me, not wanting to release it. I had to get healthy. I love what Adele said. Shout out to my girl Adele. I don't know her, but I'm just gonna call her my girl. But shout out to my girl Adele. She was like, I think someone. Imagine that, like, just on my phone, I'm texting her yesterday. Now, but like, I love what she said recently. Someone was like, why did you take so long? 5-6 years, whatever. And she's like, well, I was living life. Like, I can't just give you, like, she was like, I can never just give you TikTok songs, and no shade to people who make TikTok songs. No shade to that. But I related, because I was like, I'm the same. I can't just give you, like what you said before, bubblegum pop. I can make a bubblegum pop in 10 minutes. That's not hard for me. I wanted to give something that is real, that can actually inspire people and encourage, and people can relate to. And that, fortunately and unfortunately, takes time.
Yeah, no, and it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. I low-key feel bad, because I was definitely at the top of the list of people being like, Cass, where's the album?
Paula was in my DMs every couple of months.
I was like,
I almost blocked you. No, I'm playing. I'm playing. I loved it. It made me laugh every time. I was like, man, she cares. I love that.
Well, I would always try and be like funny with it, but I was so annoying. I would be like, you know when I used to do music? That was so great. Do you remember? Like,
And it would kill me. It was killing me. It was funny. I loved it. I honestly loved it. Because it's my sense of humor too. So I was like, yes, girl. Keep me accountable. Keep me accountable.
No, I'm very glad it is your sense of humor, because you could have been like, who is this girl? Block her.
Restrict, block.
And I'm just there like chatting away, and you're like not seeing a single thing. No, honestly, I think it was worth it, and I think people listening to the album.
So you think it was worth it?
Oh no, yeah, no. I literally said to the team, like in the group chat, okay, the interview with CASS is coming up. Just want to say waiting for the album was worth it. Like, said to the boyfriend, said to everyone, like, this it was worth it. Like, and they were all like, if you say it was worth it, it was, because they know I'm a fan of you. Like, I'm about Genesis like it came out yesterday. So
let's go.
They knew like, if Paula's saying it's worth it, like it's worth it. I'm very excited for like the whole world to experience like your last few years in a 12-track EP, not EP, 12-track album. So yeah, I think this is a great place to end, and just have people really enjoy the music and understand you a bit more as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. I'm excited to hear it. Excited for this to come out, and once again, you asked some great questions, and I think people are going to get to really understand a lot of the stuff based on it. So, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating wherever you're listening to this, and to follow us on Instagram at SheHH Podcast.